Hello, and welcome to the 7th video lecture for the course. I'm Dr. Jonina Anderson Lopez. This week we'll be reviewing more concepts about literature, like graphic novels, and we'll also be discussing more about the final paper. Let's start by discussing graphic novels in the bigger picture sense. To begin, let's get some background from other types of literature, like novels speak to us in a usually linear written narrative. Picture books tell a story with text accompanied by illustrations. Film does this with moving images and dialogue. Poetry can communicate on levels that other stories maybe arguably can't. Graphic novels combine these elements in their own unique way. They're like prose because they're a written, printed format, but they're also like film because they tell a story through dialogue and through visual images, giving the impression of movement. Graphic novels uh, can be compared to works of poetry in the way that convey intangible feelings through illusion rather than direct description. Graphic novels can be any genre, just like other types of literature, and they can tell any kind of story. The format is what makes the story a graphic novel, which usually includes text, images, word balloons, sound effects, panels, stuff we'll discuss a little bit later. This basic way of storytelling has been used in various forms for centuries, like early cave drawings, hieroglyphics, and medieval tapestries. These can all be thought of as stories told through pictures. So let's review some of the components I mentioned, and these all go into formatting graphic novels and making them distinct. To start, let's discuss panels. They have a distinct shape and size. They fit together in a certain way. Some of them interrupt or overlap one another. There are some images without any panel borders at all. The spaces in between the panels, the gutters, indicate a change in how time is passing, in where you are, or in whom you're looking at or talking to. Gutters add to how you understand the story. Think about how the dialogue appears on a graphic novels. The words could be different colors. They could be written with thicker or thinner lines. Um, think about how they would sound. How about the silence when no one's speaking? There might be an indication of narration or description, such as words in boxes but not spoken. And description versus word balloons could be important to how the story unfolds. Sounds set the scene and signal something maybe off scene and add another layer to a graphic novel. Motion lines indicate how characters or objects are moving. Sometimes you can see the sounds on the page. How are each of the sounds written? And does the way it's written reflect what it actually sounds like? And sometimes you can even see gestures from characters. For art in a graphic novel, every creator has their own style. Sometimes it's realistic, cartoony. You can sometimes tell things from expressions on character faces. You can sometimes see things in the background or the details. There are sometimes color or a lack of color throughout a page or throughout a chapter. As is often the case with emerging art, and we can arguably call graphic novels still an emerging type of art, graphic novels from Europe and the United States dominate scholarly conversations, with the notable exception of Japanese comics, despite the presence of quality graphic work elsewhere. There are high quality non-Western graphic novels that exist today, like the examples seen on screen. And the only reason they're not found as options in the module is because I couldn't find great links, free links for this content. But if you come across a free link for any one of these titles and you would rather use it for the discussion forum, you can go ahead and do that. And if you find a great link, then share it with me and I'll add one or all of these titles to as options for the reading. Graphic novels are one of the world's great narrative art forms, but for much of the history of literary studies, graphic novels have been dismissed as trivial and largely irrelevant to serious scholarship of literature. Graphic novels intersect with issues such as translation, commodification, circulation, post-colonialism, Orientalism, Global South, and so many others, just like other forms of literature. There's also some flexibility to the term novel, which might accommodate shorter works that are often serialized in the comic form. While there are several choices in the modules concerning graphic novels, today in the lecture, we're just going to review two of those choices. Starting with uh, the first, which is an autobiographical story depicting the author's childhood up to her early adult years in Iran and Austria during and after the Islamic Revolution. Much of this graphic novel, or I should say all of it, is in black and white. So there's that lack of color, and the narrative is first person. This graphic novel depicts the author's life in Tehran from ages 6 to 14, years that saw the overthrow of the Shah's regime, the triumph of the Islamic Revolution, and the devastating effects of war with Iraq. So all through those tumultuous times, we see a coming of age story that is relatable. The main messages in this graphic novel could be that education is essential for a person to have true freedom, but also that questioning institutions, in particular institutionalized education, is a must because you can't always trust these institutions, and it's okay to have a healthy um, dose of distrust. Watchmen, the other graphic novel we're going to review in the lecture, depicts an alternate history where superheroes emerged in the 1940s and 60s, and their presence changed history so much that the United States won the Vietnam War, and the Watergate scandal was never exposed. Unlike the previous example we looked at, Watchmen is depicted through different colors throughout, and then we see several character viewpoints throughout the novel rather than just a first person narrative. I believe there's also a form of epistolary storytelling or storytelling through the form of letters in between certain chapters. I could be thinking about something else. It might just be that there's a second subplot throughout the story in the form of it's either letters or just like a little side plot going on in between the main storyline. The other interesting aspect of this graphic novel lies in the main story part structure, more specifically the 9-panel grid. This was more unique than what had come out at the time, and it allowed the writers to fit more scenes onto a page, which created a faster paced story. Watchmen could be transformative for many reasons, but it's also important because it undermined a foundation of comics, and that's the idea of the hero. There are already different types of heroes before and after Watchmen, particularly the moral high ground hero. We can think of maybe like Superman or Batman in this regard because they don't kill. And then there's the morally gray hero, and we might cite Marvel characters like Punisher or Ronin because they're okay with killing when necessary. Watchmen made the idea of the fake or celebrity hero more mainstream. We can describe this kind of hero as one without a moral compass and who only does things to look good for the public eye. And there are plenty of TV depictions of these kinds of heroes as seen on the right side of the screen. Consider this question that's on the screen for later during your discussion post. You may or may not answer it or it might help you get started with your discussion post. Really, all of the background we've reviewed about graphic novels can help you complete the one discussion post that's due this week. And you only have one discussion post because project 2 is due this week, the final paper. So let's discuss more about that, starting with drafting an impactful and organized introduction paragraph, because for this class, I don't think we've really discussed that yet. So when developing an introduction, there are several parts as seen on the screen. We'll discuss what they mean and how to use this introduction formula for any kind of paper. And you start with the hook, the bridge, and end with your thesis statement. So when starting with the first part of an intro, a hook, there are different types of those as listed on the screen. With the first type of hook or a way to start an introduction, you can use the word imagine. Place the audience in someone else's shoes and have them imagine being in the situation you're describing. For example, imagine being limited to certain websites and social media uh, sites. Another type of hook or way to start an introduction is an anecdote in which you relate a brief story in one or two sentences. And we can see a brief anecdote on the screen. Another type of way to start an introduction or a hook is by using a quote or startling fact. You can add a relevant quote or startling fact from one of your books, or maybe it's about a country or political event in one of your books, like what we can see on the screen. After starting your introduction, a way to get the audience's attention with the hook, you then need a bridge. This essentially is a filler sentence to bridge the reader from the hook to your thesis statement because your introduction is going to read oddly without it. Examples of bridge sentences are on the screen. Imagine if those sentences were cut out and how that would deter from the clarity of the introduction and your reasoning for having your attention getter or your hook in the first place. Lastly, finish an introduction with a thesis statement. This term sounds fancy, but it can also be referred to as a purpose statement. Just tells the audience what you're after. You want the audience to know this from the start. That expectation usually arrives at the end of your introduction, and it serves as a roadmap for the rest of your paper. You practiced your thesis statement last week, so this part of your introduction should be really easy. Remember that a thesis is also your organizational promise. The order you list your subtopics in your thesis statement should be the order of the subtopics as found in the paper. If you keep this order, you'll seem like an organizational guru. Overall, the final paper requires you to compare and contrast two of your chosen stories from the course list. As we've previously discussed, you should first decide on what three elements to compare and contrast both of them against, and you should have done this last week. Knowing these three elements will help you craft a well-organized paper and a well-organized thesis statement. This is because those three elements will become your major section headers. Within these headers, you'll compare and contrast both stories rather than analyzing one story for one half of the paper, then moving to the next story in a second section. The sort of comparison that you see on screen on the template is much more fluid and encourages you to consider not the stories themselves, but rather literary elements that unite or pull them apart. At some point in the paper, you should include short quotes or paraphrases from each story to back up your points. Including outside academic sources to back up points is also required. If you're using MLA format, the start of your paper should include an informal header. I also suggest referring to the online MLA resources to format your paper. You can also type in MLA format into Word before clicking on the new document option, and it should bring up what you want. If you're using APA format, you should have a cover page. Just like with MLA, you can type in APA format into Microsoft Word and it will bring up a template. Make sure to use the student paper formatting for APA, with examples of this type of format being found among online resources. Are you confused about the final paper or just formatting stuff? It's a great excuse to reach out to the free resource, the Writing Center. Many students don't realize every time they pay for a class, they're already paying for Writing Center tutor fees. Take advantage of this free resource that you already paid for by paying for the course. You can, of course, always reach out to me with questions well before any due date. I hope this video lecture assisted you with the week 7 content and have a great rest of your day.